The National Consumer Commission has launched an investigation against 9 suppliers of sanitary pads. The probe stems from a study by the University of the Free State, which found harmful endocrine-disrupting chemicals. These have been linked to health complications, including hormonal imbalance, infertility, endometriosis, and even cancer. The 9 brands include Kotex, Always, Anna Organics, Comfortex, Flow, Stay Free, Lillette's, Labreeze, and My Time. The brands are required now to conduct tests on the affected products, with the results determining whether a recall will be invoked. All right, let's bring in the National Consumer Commission, the Head of Complaints and Investigations, Prudence Moilwa. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I mean, this is an incredibly worrying finding by the University of the Free State. And just looking at the list of suppliers, the list of brands associated with these findings, these are all of the major brands, aren't they?
Yes, of course. And I think we must also mention that the samples were taken from your ordinary supermarket so that they also test just what consumers are currently using.
So it's been detected in sanitary pads, panty liners, and the percentages differ depending on which chemical you're talking about. What do we know about this umbrella that we're using, endocrine disrupting chemicals? What does that mean exactly, Prudence?
Yeah, so in simple terms, these are chemicals that have been found in these products. And in the main, they're called endocrine disrupting chemicals because apparently they are absorbed by the body easily. And it's also very important to emphasize that the reason why it's such of a concern is that, you know, with the proximity with which these products are being used in the body and also the sensitive area, the absorption is quite easy. So the body absorbs it quite easily, as you may be aware, during the menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
So that is the reason why the study then focused on these things. And it's interesting that, you know, they indicated that they only tested the top part of the pads and as well as these panty liners. So you can imagine that it's possible that, you know, the toxicity might be higher in terms of the study. But also we've extended our investigation to look at tampons as well, because it was indicated during our interaction with the professors on Monday that there also seems to be some chemical also toxicity with the tampons as well.
Yeah,
so we will be looking, they will be looking broadly at all the menstrual products to just make sure that when we do come back after our investigation, we can report back in terms of what we have found. And also it's important to balance this out because this is one study done by the university. Even though it is highly referenced, we need to also get other stakeholders to assist us with their views on the study and also with regard to the testing as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about tampons as well, just as we cover the entire breadth of sanitary products. But it's incredibly worrying, isn't it, Prudence? Especially because I suppose the question becomes, how often do we do studies of this nature? You know, how overdue is a study of this nature when it comes to sanitary products?
Oh, it actually definitely is overdue. And I must say this is the first investigation of this nature that the National Consumer Commission has done. We've looked at some of the cosmetic products, but we've never looked at the sanitary towel. So we do welcome the study, even though, you know, some people might view it as raising alarm. But it is very important for scientists to continue engaging with products that are in the market so that the information can come through so that we can particularly focus on this. I was saying earlier that because of the nature of the product and its similarity to some of the nappies that are being sold in the market, we might also want to look at the nappies as well, the disposable nappies. So it's this kind of study that then directs where we look to as a country, as an institution to ensure consumer protection. So it's quite interesting times because as we engage with the South African Bureau of Standard, NEMISA, and other, you know, scientists in this nature, we want them to broadly open this, assist the Commission with the technical information so that we can then start enforcing the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act.
It is alarming, Prudence, and obviously we don't want to cause any unnecessary panic, but it absolutely is alarming, especially because, you know, young women and girls, they might start menstruating quite early on in life, and depending on just how early that is, how long potentially would have been the exposure to these endocrine disrupting chemicals?
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. I mean, from what we were informed on Monday, you know, the risk increases the longer you use the products. And as you correctly point out, young girls are starting to get their periods quite early. And if the risk increases the longer you use the product, then it's quite concerning. So even though they are saying that the daily exposure does not seem to be worrisome, what is worrisome is that being, you know, consistently exposed to this type of chemicals is the one that would raise, you know, concerns with regard to the health issues as they are stated.
It sounds to me, Prudence, that this, you know, depending on how the NCC's investigations go, it sounds like this is the beginning of quite a long road. I'm not sure what the ramifications will be if indeed it is found that this initial investigation by the University of the Free State is accurate.
Yeah, if it is accurate, I think then, you know, steps will be taken. But this is still early days. I want to emphasize that we only sent out investigation notifications on Tuesday with a questionnaire over a range of issues, not necessarily just with regard to the science, but also to require them to test. Not only that, but also, you know, issues of labeling, disclosure of information about the chemicals on the packaging, and also for them to take us into their confidence around their research and development, you know, during the production of this product. So it's quite an in-depth analysis and look into this. Even though it's early days, we want to come out of this investigation with information that we can go out there and make recommendation, whether we choose to prosecute or whether we make recommendation or we issue compliance notices to all parties that might be involved, including the other regulators in the health sphere. We want to make sure that we go out there with very solid information.
Right. One other thing that came out of the research is, of course, the fact that these sanitary pads, these liners, tampons as well, they are marketed as being free from harmful chemicals, right? Which, as you say, given the proximity of these products to the female body is important. But one of the other things the researchers noted was these chemicals may not be added intentionally, but may in fact unintentionally migrate from plastics, from adhesives, and from the manufacturing process into the products themselves. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, this goes to the root of what I just said. You know, that's why I said that we want them to take us into their confidence with regard to the research and development of the product. What actually goes into this? We are aware that the producers of such product have scientists on board, and we would like to hear from them in terms of, during research and development, what the results were and what advice was given. On the issue of labeling, as you may know, the Consumer Protection Act is very clear with regard to marketing standards, labeling requirements with regard to ingredients or the makeup of a product. So we want to, after getting all this information, test the information we get from them against the labeling standards as well as the marketing standards as prescribed in the Consumer Protection Act. So we still want the engagement to continue so that we get as much information from everyone, including the companies that are not necessarily stated in the UFS report. So the engagements have just started, but we want to open it up so that as a country we must know what we're dealing with, as well as from the consumer protection perspective, to see at the end, are we taking a punitive stance as we are allowed in terms of the CPA, or it's an issue that perhaps the world over is dealing with.
What's your advice now to consumers, particularly those of us who are parenting young women and girls, but women like you and me?
Yeah. Look, I would say to be a little bit patient with the study. I wouldn't want to give health advice at this stage. But obviously, I think the known practices of saying, reading of the labels, I think, is number one. Number two, to also just say that to be a little bit patient and to continue using the product, because this is but one study. I do understand that the risks are there in terms of the study, but I wouldn't want the disruption to happen in communities wherein young girls cannot go to school, people cannot continue, with their normal business of the day. We would want to say, let's read this with caution. We still need to look at if indeed this study is a study that we should rely on in order to even do a product recall if we need to, as we are allowed to do as the NCC.
Well, Prudence, we hope to talk to you soon as your own investigations as the National Consumer Commission continues. It's a very, very important story we've got our eyes on. That's Prudence Moilwa. She's the Head of Investigations and Complaints at the NCC.